So, what is urban gardening? Urban gardening may be referred to as a container garden, in which growing plants in pots and other containers rather than on the soil. So, this practice has been increasing in the United States. We see a lot of people and communities growing these urban gardens, but what people don't know is that there's a history behind gardening, urban gardens. And so, back during the times of World War I and World War II, we saw victory gardens being implemented because the United States were too busy giving food to other countries that they eventually ran out of food supply in their own country. So they asked their citizens to start planting gardens, and the government supplied seeds for them to grow and also classes so they could learn how to sustain life in a garden. So, so this shows that the citizens are patriotic. They care for their country enough to actually garden and succeed. There was an increase in food production during the time, 40% increase actually, and a 4% decrease in food prices. So the United States greatly benefited from this. And so now we're looking at heavy industry taking over, and the only way citizens can fight back is to produce their own food and stop buying their products and start growing their own crops so that there isn't a high demand for all these poisonous, deadly crops that are being grown in the food industry.
So this is the local community garden in Queens Park of City of Inglewood, and if you can see, it's just in the middle of the neighborhood. You got the local community members just playing some dominoes. Got a little gymnasium over there for the kids to play, and this is one of the things that they are growing. These are the butter beans. You can see.
They actually look pretty delicious, if you ask me.
Coming in real nice.
Deeper inside to find them, you know.
But also you can see that there's not much really growing at the moment. Guess this is not really the season. But there's rosemary over there as well. And you got little places you can sit. Looks like they might be telling stories right here.
Maybe educating the kids.
Educating the youth. Urban gardening and agriculture is becoming more and more practiced throughout the United States. Many people are asking why urban gardening. The first major reason of this practice is, urban gardening provides healthier nutrition. As well, these gardens in many cases are started in response by the urban poor, in response to the lack of poor, unreliable, and shaky access to food. In essence, this gives these people a higher power of purchasing power. Also, many grocery stores are providing vegetables and crops and produce that are GMOs, which are genetically modified organisms, which, in essence are not healthy because they still have sprays left over, and some of them are even pesticides themselves, which are not healthy for human consumption. That's why urban gardening, they implement these organic practices. Security is also another reason why these community gardens are sprouting up throughout the United States. Food security is becoming a major problem. According to the RUAF, the cost of supplying and distributing food from rural areas to the urban areas, or to import food from the cities, are rising constantly, and it is expected that urban food insecurity will increase. So, this is another reason why many urban gardens, for the most part, are community gardens. Another major problem, grocery stores they're just too far away for some people. So in these areas in which these community gardens are starting to come up in are areas where the only food source are from questionable sources like gas stations or liquor stores. Okay. urban gardening also has positive economic and social impacts as well. Economically, it could be a potential successful strategy in reducing poverty. Many people in these communities are spending a significant portion of their income on food. When if you are growing your own food or participating in a community garden, you save a significant portion of that money you're spending on income. And some people also make their own gardens, and they take that money, or they take those produce and they sell it out to the community and make another income, as well as whatever job that they have at the moment, or sometimes they make it their own full-time job. Some positive social effects that come along with it could be improving social integration within communities and educating them on ecology. Also, there are some organizations that are put together, and they have these urban agriculture projects, which they help disadvantaged groups such as disabled people, women, elderly, those kind of disabled groups. These projects help these people with providing them with an honest and decent livelihood. It's not just the United States who are engaging in this practice. These practices are being put in place in many places throughout the world. Some of these places are Berlin, Germany, Paris, France, London, England, and even Dublin in Ireland. Since more of half the world's population lives in urban areas, it only makes sense to grow food where people live. With the knowledge of all these positive effects that community and urban gardening can have on society, there's no wonder why people are hopping on board with this idea, and it's becoming more prevalent throughout the United States. However, there are a few barriers to this practice. One of the first challenges that urban gardens face is having good soil. Soil could be expensive, and to purchase and export it is also not an easy task to do. Also, there are several contaminants that can be found in urban soil, but the most common contaminant is lead. Soil that holds lead can be fatal when ingested. Also, another barrier that these urban gardens face is water availability. Over the past century, it's been difficult to find reliable and safe water sources due to the growing water usage throughout the world. Zoning, which is also known as growing space, is another problem which is inhibiting these urban gardens to be sprouting out even more. And also, having few financial resources has become a significant factor, which limits the growth of gardening. Cities are demanding really high property values, identifying available open spaces has become a real challenge. Also, labor itself is one of the significant deterrent, because it's expensive and it's hard to find labor to expand. Okay. There are a few solutions that can be taken into consideration in order to develop and incorporate an urban gardening plan. Some of these are establish a community soil conservation and distribution program, a clear urban agricultural policy, and even obtaining an inspector to help you out with that as well. Another solution could be seek land ownership and garden security. Lastly, another important one could be encourage gardening in small or even rooftop spaces. There are many different communities who engage in urban gardening these days, no matter the race or ethnicity. However, the Black community is becoming more prevalent with urban farming and gardening. According to Food Politic, Journal of Food and News Culture, go into any socioeconomically distressed neighborhood in any major U.S. city, and you will find urban agriculture projects run by nonprofit or agencies. Growing food in the city, especially in low-income neighborhoods, has become a very popular way to promote social justice. Also, PolicyLink states, studies have consistently shown that there are fewer supermarkets and other retail outlets selling affordable, nutritious food in low-income communities than wealthy ones, and in predominantly African American and Latino neighborhoods than in predominantly white neighborhoods. Unfortunately, this is exactly the reason why many Black communities have started urban and community gardens, so that they actually have access to healthier food, or even just food in general. Okay.
So I'm over here trying to plant some rosemary. It's going pretty nice. As you can tell, the soil is very rich, nutritious. It's pretty nice. Great for watering, great for any kind of plant. As you can see around us, we have some pretty nice plants here. So, hopefully we can add a little more livestock to this little humble garden of ours. So, as Chris, John, and I were heading over to our urban gardening location, we actually started noticing a lot of things. Well, as we were driving through the neighborhoods of the local area, we started noticing that everything was caged up, down to the doors, the windows, everything. I mean, even the dogs were caged up because they didn't want anybody to take the dogs, you know what I mean? And so it actually got us thinking. And we were like, oh my gosh, what if everything we learned in class was actually true? And so then we began to notice other things. We started noticing that there were no supermarkets around. We started noticing liquor stores at every corner. We started noticing that there were fast food everywhere. I remember me, Chris, and John were making jokes like, oh, look, guys, it's Church's Chicken once again. And we just started seeing fried chicken all over the place. And it just really got us thinking, like, wow, everything we learned in class was amazingly true. And it's one thing to hear about it in class, but it's another thing to actually go and witness it for yourself. I myself did grow up in that environment, so I did have an idea about that already, but unfortunately, I was too young and naive at the time to actually realize what it was. Now that I'm grown up and matured through my education, I have a vast amount of knowledge, and I'm like, wow, something has to be done about this. Therefore, in the future, the Urban Agriculture Project will greatly benefit these communities. I can see it already. I talked about the vertical farming project inside my report, and I strongly believe that that could be the future for these kinds of environments, especially with those that are very close together and don't have any space to move out. All you need is a simple place a lot, and then you can just build up. I've seen very different illustrations where they had cattle in one level, and then they had chickens in the next. They were just raising them, going up higher and higher, and each level had a different kind of crop or thing that they could bring to the community. And this would be very beneficial to not only the people around, but also to the community as a whole. Thank you.